Hey, welcome to Overtime, where we take Sunday's message further. My name is Jeremy, and I'm your host. And this is a podcast where we just want to ask the questions that we think that you would ask as it relates to Sunday's message. And as we do so, we hope that it helps you grow in your life and your faith. With that being said, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all of the podcasts that are coming out. Not only that, hit the like button, because when you do so, it helps us help other people. And if you ever have a question about Sunday's content or about Overtime, you can submit those to overtime@npaustin.com, and we will be sure to get to those in future podcasts. So with that being said, here's a quick recap of Sunday, and then we're going to jump into our conversation today.
I have 3 sons that are now 16 and older, and they're all driving, and they're all interested in cars and engines and modifications. And so I went to one of the coolest resources, YouTube. It's honestly, it's this whole new world that's opened up. And that's true in so many areas of life. And that's also true when it comes to prayer. There's a group of guys who actually discovered this new world, experienced it. And they were the 12 disciples of Jesus. And they were watching Jesus pray, and they were seeing this kind of whole new world open up. And then one day, hey, Jesus, would you teach us to pray? And Jesus said, absolutely. I'm trying to teach you the purpose and meaning of prayer, to align or realign our will with God's will. What he says next requires a posture of surrender. Once you get there, now give us today our daily bread. This is the idea to go, don't give me too much. And please don't give me too little, but just give me exactly what I need today. We declare our dependence.
How are you feeling? Chippy? You got a lot of energy. I need some of that.
No, this is manufacturing quite a bit of energy to get me some energy.
Okay, then I should try it.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, you gotta.
It loosens you up.
Yeah.
I do feel looser. Haven't eaten lunch yet, so I've got to like, Yeah, that's the Holy Spirit activate. That's the way you do it.
I don't think so. Okay, Josh, you good?
I'm good.
All right. Well, Buck,
Yes.
I am back. Jordan was here last week.
Hey, welcome back.
Thank you.
It's good to see your face.
It's good to see you as well. Even though we've seen each other a bunch today.
I know. We have. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you something.
Sure.
Because I just experienced in the last 24 hours road tripping with a 4-month-old. And
Yeah.
it's you know, it was good. It was interesting. It was interesting.
That's where you're like, I don't know how to call something bad good.
Well, I'm just my marriage is still intact.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
I think
right.
that's good.
Sure.
So road tripping for you.
Yeah.
With 5. At one point, you had 5 under 6 or 6 and under, right?
6 and under, yeah.
Did you guys take road trips?
100%.
Yeah, and how did it go?
They were really hard. Well, this is where, I mean, so much of like things like were pressed out of me, like things that I didn't even know were broken inside of me. I'm like, well, that's broken. There's a lot of stuff. And especially they're all yelling. And then, one of our boys, had terrible diaper. We were going to Cloudcroft, New Mexico one time.
Which is what, 12 hours?
Yeah, with kids about 12 hours. And so, typically 10, but, add another 2 for diaper changes and all that stuff. And one of our boys had a terrible, just on the way there, got a terrible diaper rash, and his stomach was all upset. And he's like 4 months or,
man.
And so, and then they're yelling, and it's just, and the volume gets so loud, and it's, somebody's crying, somebody's fighting with that number of them. And then it's like, you're trying to focus, and I didn't have AirPods or anything like that, and that's where my patience is all of a sudden you just want to turn around and just yell.
Yeah.
Be like, quiet, or something. And those are the things I'm like, goodness.
Which you never did.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
no.
never.
Yeah. My boys may tell you different, but, if I'm trying to look good, I'll say, oh, no, I just prayed.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, no, I yelled far too much.
Yeah. Well, that's fair. Yeah, we just had one. But it was the whole, it was blowouts and pulling. We were probably, I don't know. Yeah, about a little less than 24 hours ago, we were right outside of Amarillo, pulled off on the side of the road, changing the blowout of the diaper, and I'm the diaper, what's the wipes?
Oh, okay.
Holder. So Ashley's like wiping and then throw them, and I'm just catching them. And they're just like covered, and I'm like,
I'm sorry.
This is my life.
That sounds terrible.
It's okay. And of course, after Grayson has a blowout, he's just like laughing up a storm.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, that makes it a little bit more bearable.
Yeah.
When you're holding those wipes with, you're like, that's my boy.
Yeah.
There he is.
Yeah. But we made it. We were just
That's good.
grateful to make it and do
That's
it.
good.
So.
Well, welcome back.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, thank you. But you talked about praying in the car when your boys are going crazy. I'm really trying to pull us into
segue. I like how you transitioned.
It kind of bombed, but but we are in part 3 of prayer, breaking down the formula, and we're taking this prayer concept, this idea. The disciples go to Jesus and they say, "Teach us how to pray." And he explains to them kind of how to pray, how not to pray. And we've been breaking that down, kind of calling it a formula because it can feel very formulaic, but it can lead to something really beautiful in our prayer life and our relationship with God. And so we've been breaking that down, and we had part 3 this past week. And I want to dive into some questions from part 3, and then also just like another side of the coin when it comes to prayer.
Sure.
Some of the stuff that maybe we're not hitting on Sundays as well. But the first one I wanted to hit on, you shared a moment of sitting with your palms up. I think it was maybe the Saturday before Sunday, and it just wasn't connecting, and you had a little bit of anxiety asking God to kind of give you, what you need for the message. For many of us, it's a different picture of how we experience prayer in movies, or even on the other side of, I just picture people sitting in pews growing up in traditional churches, and like the picture of prayer they're given. How has your understanding, your relationship of prayer kind of evolved over the years to where you have that kind of moment on Saturday?
Yeah. So in short and in summary, lots of words, short and, few words. That was the transition. So earlier on, I think I thought was under the impression the more I talk, the longer I pray. So it's like, man, I got to pray for 4 minutes. And then I'm like, whoa, what if I prayed for 10 minutes? And then I'd read these stories of these incredible individuals who'd go on their knees and pray for 2 hours every morning. I'm like, wow, well, I don't pray right.
Yeah.
So if I could pray for 30 minutes, and that's when you're like, man, I got to say a lot of words. And then you're like, okay, do I say a lot of Bible words? Do I say a lot of Christian words? Do I say a lot of religious words? And then you start getting in, at least for me, the order words. And if I can use bigger words, somehow it's going to get God to do what I want him to do. And so that was like my prayer life for a long time. And today it's far more reflective. Today I'm like, oh, he already knows.
Yeah.
It's like I'm talking to God. I shared in part 1, with Phil Mickelson and Tiger Woods. It's like, what do I have to share about golf? I can tell him a couple, but for the most part, I'm going to be in this posture of curiosity, this posture of listening.
Yeah.
I want to listen. I want to be curious. I want to ask questions. He's got the answers. He knows what's best. He knows why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. He knows what I need to say. He knows what's going on in my marriage. So my posture of prayer right now is very much like, I'm talking about on Sunday. It's, I start with my Father and just say, hey, here's what's going on. I know you know this, and you know my heart, you know my mind. Here's who you are. God, I totally trust you. I really do. I don't, here's some areas that I don't want to surrender, but I know whatever you call me to is better, and because you love me. So God, here's what's going on. And then I ask a question, and, oftentimes I'll just sit there and, try to keep my heart and mind on things above. And he meets me, and it's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's cool. And the example of you being, on Saturday going like, God, I'm trying to figure this message out, and doing that, and God meeting you in those moments. I think God does that not just in those moments, but in just day to day, or moment to moment, hour to hour throughout the day when we're driving in the car, and this meeting's coming up, and I got this thing that I'm dealing with, and I don't know, it made me think of Paul, because we were driving in the car, and I was thinking a lot while we were driving in the car. Made me think of Paul's, pray without ceasing. And this idea that wherever you are throughout the day, whatever's going on, there's obviously an intentional time and place like you're talking about, but there's also just those moments where we just pause and go, man, my hands are starting to squeeze. I'm starting to grab control again. God, let me just release control.
Yeah. I had one last night.
Yeah.
One of those moments. And I was sitting there, and Jill and I, we may have had some tension between us. Just to be honest.
Sure.
And I'm laying there, and just one of those moments that, you can pick your side of the bed and go, hey, I'm just going to keep my back turned. And, I'm just mad, and I'm hurt. And, I was like, God, you know what's up, and you know why. And I was like, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? He said, hold her. So I did.
And it was all fixed.
No. But it was better.
Yeah.
I think, it's better. It's just one of those things to go, gosh, he knows what I need to say. He knows how to love. He created me. He designed me. He is the creator. Like, I've said throughout the series, the uncreated creator. And if he designed me for something. And I'm more curious to figure out what he designed me for, because when I discover that, I'm more free than I've ever been. And it's just like, anytime you use the iPhone according to the way it should be used, because Steve Jobs, he invented it, versus trying to like use it as a bobber and fishing. It's
like, that's not how it's supposed
there's
to be
so
used.
much freedom in finding your design and finding purpose and meaning in what God, and he knows. So, I might as well just ask him. And it's really the posture of my prayer today is a lot more of that, and a lot more of like, God, I just trust you. And so, what Paul says, pray continually. I mean, that's just the postures this throughout the day. Like, I was walking into a meeting before this podcast, and it's like, God, this may be a hard meeting. God, what do you want me to know? What do you want me to hear? What do you want me to say? What's my posture? What's his posture? God, I just really want to hear from you.
Yeah.
And that's like my prayers throughout the day.
Yeah, for sure. Yep,
That was a very masculine moment.
Yes, it was very much.
Yeah.
As I was thinking about praying without ceasing, one of the things that I don't know, as I am outside, as I go on walks, as things like that, like there's moments that you have told me, or I'll come to you and we're in a meeting and I'm, I don't know, complaining or talking about something, and you're like, have you invited God into that? And I just have that thought of like, how did I not think to invite God into that?
Sure.
And so it's kind of changed my perspective as I'm going on walks and just doing things throughout the day. I'm in the car, just like, what am I not inviting God into right now?
Well, I'll talk about it this Sunday. I mean, a little preview, but it's just like muscle memory, like learning a new skill, learning a new whatever. It just takes time. It takes repetition. It takes that place to go, pray continually. We think we read it. And I read it this morning, or I read it this afternoon, or heard it on Sunday, hey, the very next day it should be my reality. And that's just not how it works. And so, that takes time, and it takes being reminded of over and over and over, and it takes repetition. And before long, it's just like, in golf, the longer you get on the driving range and the more golf balls you hit, and repetition and spending day after day, time after time, eventually it's just part of your muscle memory. Eventually it's just what you do.
Right.
And so I think that's kind of like how prayer works in terms of praying continually. It's just like, oh yeah, of course I would go to him because he already has the answer. And, what I do with my kids, or, in this job or dating relationship, whatever it may be.
Yeah. One of the things I've heard you do a lot, and you talked about on Sunday, asking for daily bread, that being that part of the Lord's Prayer that Jesus modeled for us. And one of the things I've heard you do a lot over the years is pray for really big things, big audacious things. Pray for God to provide, a lot of funds so we can do something, or pray for a lot of people to show up for something, or because we can connect the dots between all those big things and how those would impact people's individual lives and individual stories. And I've heard you do that over the years, which is very different than not asking God for too much, and knowing you as well and your personality is like go big or go home.
Sure.
And so when you pray, how do you reconcile both the daily bread, God, let me not ask for too much, let me just trust in what you provide, and God, I'm going to ask you for big, audacious, crazy things?
Right. No, that's a great question. I think, I've tried to make the distinction throughout the series that this is a foundational prayer, this is a core prayer, this is a centering prayer, this is what puts my heart and mind on things above. This is like what prepares me for the day. This is so intimate, so personal. This is me and God. This is where I meet with my Father. And so it's like, I don't know, like with your son, when he's older and talking a lot more in coherent words.
Sure.
You're going to have those moments where it's just like very intentional, you and him, and it's life-giving. He gets to discover your heart. He discovers your heart. It's like, and you have his best interest in mind just because he doesn't have the experience, and he's 5 and he's looking to you and he's trusting you because you love him, and your advice is going to be loving even if he's like, Dad, I don't want to,
Right.
But those times are going to be very intentional. And you'll take him out to breakfast, you'll take him out to lunch, whatever it may be. Those are centering for him. Those are foundational. Those shape so much of what he thinks about himself, what he thinks about the world, what he thinks about relationships. So that's what I keep trying to get to, is this idea. What Jesus is teaching here is very foundational. This is like daily. So this would be maybe in the morning. This is, you pick a time, pick a place, and this is my time with God. I met him today. He met me today. He spoke to me today. He led me today. So that's really important. And then I've said throughout the series, there are exceptions. There are all kinds of times you can pray flare prayers and, pray different, all these kind of things, and prayers of repetition. I mean, if that helps you get closer to God and you have this memorized prayer of repetition, go for it. Fantastic. God's big enough and can handle it. So it's in that space that oftentimes I ask the big prayers. And that's the space that I'm like, hey, I'm praying for the city, or I'm praying for, something big, and I think God loves that, and I do think part of the reason why we do that is, I think about scriptures like Matthew 28, which is the Great Commission, and this is like, go to the ends of the world, where Jesus is like, okay, if you're going to be my follower, like, first, are you thumbs up? I'm in. Then he says, okay, let me tell you what you should do with the rest of your life. Go and make disciples of all nations and baptize them, and teach them the things I've taught you, and then baptize them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And surely I'm with you to the very end of the age. It's like this idea to go, like, go to the world. Okay, well, if that's Jesus' instructions, I should be praying something kind of big. If he's like, go there. In Acts, I think it's Acts 1:8 or 1:9, it's the idea where he says, hey, go be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the world. Well, those are huge populations. Those are huge geographic sections of the world, and it's the whole world. Well, that's what you call me to do. So if you're the one who's going to empower me, you're the one who's going to give me the ideas and strategy, well, I'm going to come to you and ask you for those kind of big things. Or, I think that gives us a category of praying something significant, praying something gigantic. Now, I think there is a distinction, though, and I alluded to it this Sunday. Should we pray for that $7.5 million Lamborghini made of 50 pounds of gold and precious stones? That's big. I don't have one of those. And I think James addresses that. I think it's James 4, James 2. James 4, like 2 through 3, something like that. If you read that, I think
James 4, 2 through 3, yeah.
Yeah, it gives great perspective. And this is I think one of those guardrails in terms of like, can I pray for that? Can I pray for this big thing? And so what does he say?
He says, you want what you don't have, so you scheme and kill to get it. You are jealous of what others have, but you can't get it, so you fight and wage war to take it away from them. Yet you don't have what you want because you don't ask God for it. And even when you ask, you don't get it because your motives are all wrong. You want only what will give you pleasure.
Mm-hmm. And so I love what he says, because this is the idea: envy, selfishness. This is all about me. This is going to enhance my life. This is going to give me what I've always desired and wanted. And it's the idea absent of God. It's about me. And so when you approach God and pray for big things that are so self-focused, and it's momentary, it's not keeping the eternal perspective, it's not in line with what he called us to, I think those are the guardrails to go, not sure if that's what he's actually talking about. And I think those are sometimes why God's like, nope, not going to happen. And just like a good father who loves you, he'd say, nope, because I love you too much to allow you to go down that path. And then if we're persistent, one of the mysteries of the Bible, many, is that your will be done. Mm-hmm. And God's oftentimes not going to get in the way of that. And so it's like, go for it. Like, it's one of those things to go like, God gives us incredible amounts of freedom. And if we want something, and, oftentimes he's not going to violate that, and our will be done.
Yeah. What kind of big prayers are you personally praying?
For my children. That's for real. That's, my boys are all getting to the place to where it's like far more relational. And it's like the relational space. Do I have their heart? Do they trust me? Do they want to spend time with me? They're struggling. Like, they're trying to, for lack of a better way to phrase it, find their place in the world and go like, who am I? And, what did God call me to do? And am I strong enough or powerful enough? And, they're facing temptations to where they're going to be tempted to put on their false self and, act like, hey, put up this certain image and, but who really knows them? And, questions about God, questions about Jesus, and all of that's like converging. And, that's a big prayer of mine. I'm constantly thinking about, God, show me how to get to the heart of my son, Sam. Show me how to get to the heart of my son, Luke. What are they struggling with that I just don't have perspective of? You do. You know their hearts. And so that's a big prayer I'm praying for. I'm praying right now very specific for our church and for our next steps with our facility. I gave an update, I think a week or two ago, and we're just at a place that we're stuck, in terms of what are the next steps. And we've been at this for quite a while. We had a lot of, direction and momentum and, all kinds of exciting things. And COVID hit and, banking parameters and guardrails didn't change. And, our church has changed and, we're in a much better posture, but it may not look that way on paper. So there's a lot more context and explanation with banks. And, I get to the point to go, God, what do you want us to do? You know what's wise. You know how we're going to make an impact in this area and love people and lead people well. You know how a building is simply a tool, not the church. What's the greatest kind of tool we could create to love people in the most effective ways and meet people, engage people, allow steps of connection? So I'm praying for that right now. And then, you've heard me pray this. I pray it all the time as far as city. One of our crazy, big, audacious, if I could dream big, what's going to happen? And, one of the things that was most compelling for me to leave Dell and, what that brought to Jill and I's life was to see the city of Greater Austin know who Jesus is, that Jesus is relevant in their life. And, right now 1.8 million people are not engaged in church. And I don't know what all that means, but, I can guess that perhaps means there's some confusion about Jesus, confusion about Christianity, confusion about meaning and purpose and identity. And I want people to experience so badly who Jesus is. And so I'm praying that one day, because of the things that God has allowed us to do and be part of, the numbers are reversed. And that one day, because of what we're doing, that we can all sit there and rock on the porch and drink a little iced tea or whatever we're drinking and all smile at one another and go, we got to be part of that. And to see the next generation take that, further than we've ever thought possible. And we see the majority of our city is engaged in church. Jesus is relevant. They're inspired to live different lives. And they're living out what Jesus said, to love as I've loved you. And that's my, God, you have to get involved. I'm begging, I'm pleading, and probably praying in all the wrong ways, but you can handle all that. And, but practically speaking, I ask him all the time, God, what does that look like today? That's a vision of tomorrow, but what's most strategic today? Especially on a Sunday, if you hear me pray, during our vision moment, where we talk about, here's what your finances are doing. That's my prayer all the time. God, you know what we need to do? You know what sideways energy? You know what we're spending money on that's just, we're spending money because it's about us and not about you. So just give us eyes, give us ears, give us a heart, give us a mind to wrap around your plans, because those are the best. And so, because if we can do that, then perhaps in the tomorrows, we could see that dream realized. And God has to lead us there.
Yeah. Every time I hear you talk about that, our vision and our hopes and our dreams, you always point to that very specific moment, leaving Dell, discovering that the 1.8 million in the city of Austin not engaged in church, and that just being something that broke your heart. Now, obviously, over the years, many other people have also had their hearts broken by that very vision and said, yeah, I want to be a part of doing something, making a dent in that, at the very least with my life and passing the baton to the next generation. To someone who's listening and just going I haven't had that moment. I don't know what I want from God. I don't know what I want to pray big for. What would you say to them?
I feel like what I say to you sometimes. Have you invited God into that? I don't know. I wish. No, I don't wish this, but I joke about wishing. If I had that kind of religious power, I can just touch you and, you're going to be healed and do all those kind of things. And, I have that's me playing God. And I am definitely not God. And but I know he has the answer. He really does. And I know he loves you. And, I've shared this before, but one of the things I remind myself every day that, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, that he knit together, my life in my mom's womb, and that he knows every hair on my head. And I laugh about that a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of tall hairs on your head.
Well, there's, several. But that just makes it so personal to me to go, like, he knows. He knows what needs to burden my heart. And he knows that there are things that I can chase and be burdened and break my heart that ultimately are not from God. And so, because he knows that, I just think, man, if I was in somebody watching or listening and they're like, I don't have that, I would just say, man, just bring that to the Lord. Like, honestly, just say, God, I don't have that, but you do. You know what's going to give me purpose and meaning. You know what's going to bring fulfillment. You know exactly what I need to pursue with my time and my resources and my talent. What is that, God? Would you show me that? And I'm just telling you, he's so faithful, so faithful. May not be overnight. There may be God wants to teach you some things along the way, but I think he'll give you that gift.
Yeah. I heard Andy Stanley once say a question that I think is a good question just to ask with God.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily ask God, but just sit with him. And it is just, what breaks your heart?
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the most powerful questions, because chances are what breaks someone's heart, water in Africa might break one person's heart, and homelessness here in Austin might break another person's heart. And perhaps God has wired us and designed us differently and put different things in our hearts to lead us towards what he wants us to do.
That's a great question.
And pray for big,
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, that was good. I just thought, it's been a long time since we've heard that, but
it's good.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, this was a shorter podcast.
Yes, it was.
Well, those are all the questions we had on this one. Is there anything else you would say, just as we're talking about praying big prayers? And
No, I think I alluded to it on Sunday, and I just say, I said it during our leadership team today. I just said, man, do it. Like, I know this is overly pragmatic, but come on. I'm just telling you, it's you know what I'm talking about if you've ever experienced something that's so cool, that's so rad, that it requires trust, it requires intentionality, it requires, like, you got to go for it. But it's on the other side of going for it that you begin to experience something that's like, wow. And, I would just say, if you're listening or watching and, you heard the concepts, you heard the ideas, you've read the words, that would be my greatest advice. Go to what Jesus is teaching and just do it. It's we want the results without the work, and I think Jesus has been very clear to go, I've invited you into something really significant, but it's up to you. If you want to come meet with me, I'm available.
Yeah,
and so I just say, go for it and begin with your Father. Remind yourself of who He is. Is there any area of your life you need to surrender? And then, just declare your dependence. Just go, God, you know me, you know my heart, you know what I need. Would you meet me this morning and just show me that? And I'm dependent upon you to do that.
Yep.
And I just think, what a wonderful way to start a day.
Yeah. I do have another question for you.
Okay.
When you talk about praying that way and praying the way that Jesus kind of models for us, and your kingdom come, your will be done, all that stuff, how do you not lose heart? A lot of people might talk about praying for the same thing over and over and over again. I mean, you've been praying for the 1.8 million for how long?
12 years.
12 years. And I don't know, every day, multiple times a week. How do you not wake up in the morning and go, all right, God, praying for the 1.8 again. When you going to show up? How do you not wake up and do that? Because I think I've heard people talk about that being like the monotony. That's where it becomes formulaic, right?
Yeah. I mean, I want to be clear. I don't pray every single day for the 1.8 million, but I pray every single week. If you're burdened, you're burdened. It's, if your heart breaks, your heart breaks. And there are days, there are perseverance moments, but like, it's genuine, it's authentic. I don't have to manufacture it. It's like, if I start talking about people not knowing Jesus, I'll get really emotional. I can't help it. And I hate getting emotional. And this is something I've been working on for a long time, because I feel weak when I do, but I'm actually more alive. And it's just, I can't help it. So like, I couldn't help not praying for that. I think if I turn my back on God, maybe I could, but I think so. I just think it's when it's that kind of a burden, when it's that kind of thing that breaks your heart. It's like, I couldn't help but pray for my boys. I couldn't help but pray for my marriage. Couldn't help but pray for the people here at Northpoint. It's just like, there's a genuine gratefulness. Like there's a real genuine, like one of the things when somebody gives here at Northpoint, I write them a handwritten letter, and I legit, like, I lick it, I spit on the envelope, seal it on up. And then I just put it down. I put my hands on it, and the hands don't represent anything. It's just, puts me in a different posture. And I pray for them. And I'm overwhelmed by their gratefulness to invest financially. And what a big commitment that is, and what a big act of trust and obedience to God. And so, I think there's passages about perseverance in prayer, and I think certainly there's great reminders to do that. But again, I think it's one of those things, bring to the Lord. If it's hard for you to persevere, ask Him. Why is it hard to persevere? Why do I keep forgetting about this?
Yep.
Maybe there's a different burden.
Yep. Awesome. Well, we're gonna finish. We're not finishing.
Yeah.
We are gonna continue the series this week.
2 more parts left.
Yeah, 2 more parts left.
He says 2 more things in the prayer.
I know.
You can kind of read it and go, okay, directionally, here's where we're going to go.
I was thinking 4, not 5. 5 parts.
Yep.
So we have 2 more. So this Sunday we're gonna be in part 4 of prayer, and we're continuing with what part of the prayer?
Forgiveness.
Yeah,
this is going to be. I'm really excited. This is so important. So important.
Well, Jesus says some pretty strong things about forgiveness and even this, part of the prayer.
And when it comes to forgiveness, there's something that Jesus does with tension. He creates this enormous tension for you, for me, for all of us, Christian, not a Christian, enormous tension with what he says. And we're going to look at that this Sunday, and he doesn't resolve it. And I'm like, come on, Jesus, resolve it. But I'm telling you, it's once you begin to understand why he doesn't solve the tension, it's pretty cool. So we're going to talk about that.
Right on. Well, we'll be in part 4 on Sunday, and we'll see everybody there online or in person.
Awesome. Thank you.